Today, I want to talk about something that's really important when it comes to retirement and investing. And it's how a lot of times investors can accidentally crash their retirement savings and their portfolio by making some really common, easy to make mistakes. Mistakes that are usually made with the best of intentions to preserve their portfolio throughout retirement, but can often have very negative results and consequences. And so, we're really talking about human behavior and how to understand what we're all susceptible to so that we can help avoid that so that you don't, mess up your portfolio in retirement. Um, that's what this is all about. So this is very important because you could drastically change the course of your retirement for the worse if you fall into a lot of these very easy to make mistakes. If you're new here to this channel, or if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, my name is Chris Hammond, financial advisor at Hammond Wealth Advisory, where we help our clients that are mostly getting close to retirement or have already entered retirement to be prepared for it, to help them to invest properly for that new phase of life, to help them put together a long-term plan for minimizing their taxes throughout retirement as well, so that they can keep more of their money and so that they don't have to have that anxiety of wondering, am I going to run out of money 10, 15, 20 years from now, or am I making a bad mistake at retiring right now? Well, the topic today is really important when it relates to that because some of the actions that investors take can be very detrimental to their retirement portfolios. And we're going to walk through some of these together so you'll know and you'll be able to help yourself prevent making some of these mistakes as well. Now, a lot of times if you ask an investor, well, how do you invest? Like, what are you, what is your decision-making process? Well, a lot of times they'll tell you things like, well, I'll look at, say, the fundamentals. I want to look at a certain, maybe, the price earnings of a company, or I want to see like how much debt they have, are they over levered, got too much leverage, something like that. They may say, well, we look at the fundamentals. That'd be one thing. Or somebody may say, well, I have a systematic selection process. So I screen stocks based on their earnings growth rate, or based on their profit margins or their free cash flow, and I invest that way, and they have a systematic screening process. That might be one way that they would describe it. Or they may say, well, I look at, I don't know, current prices. That would be another one. Or maybe I just want to invest in different, market cap, maybe it's just large cap stocks or small cap stocks, things like that. All those things are fine. And that sounds really good, investing fundamentals. And that's how, investing with a plan in place like that is the smart thing to do. Now, in reality, though, a lot of investors do not invest like that. And a lot of investors are influenced by other things when they are determining what to purchase in their portfolio. So they might be influenced by the media. That would be a big one. Media influence. They may be influenced by friends or family. So this is like that friend at the barbecue who's telling you about, yeah, I bought this stock, it went up, we did great, and you can too. That might be one. Emotions play a big factor. It's kind of all related in with the other as well. And then here's a big one: previous investment experience. I'll give you an example. Let's say you went through the 2008 market crash, and it scared you, and you went all to cash or something, something like that, and you missed out on the growth that happened later on. You may be very scared of crashes from then on out because of what you went through, and you may be even more scared of it if you're in retirement at that point. That previous investment experience will play a role in how you are actually determining what to buy and what to invest in. Okay. So how a lot of people think they invest may be drastically different from actually how they invest. All right. So let's talk a little bit about media influence. So when I talk about media influence, I'm talking about things like maybe you go on the TV, you watch CNN or CNBC. Maybe you go to Fox Business. Maybe you check out Bloomberg. things like that. Now, it's fine to stay up to date on what's going on in the world. That helps out. I like to think of it myself about two different ways. You have just kind of general information of what's going on, right? Always good to keep up to date on that. And then you have this other part on the media that can influence you, where you have some shows that are like individual stock recommendations. Okay. And this would be like shows like, they'll say like, this stock is a buy, this stock is a sell, this stock, hold on to it. Those shows make enough recommendations over time. There's going to be some right, some wrong. It's going to be hard to determine when they are right, when they are wrong. Probably the most famous recent example now would be like back in February of 23, when Kramer had recommended Silicon Valley Bank and said, no, this is a good bank. Don't believe all the stuff you're hearing that says it's bad. And then the next month, it's literally they bankrupt, right? So it's hard to tell when they're right, when they're wrong. And it's also, you have to think about, if they know that these stocks are really that good, why are they telling you? Why are they telling me? Why are they sharing this to hundreds of thousands and millions of people on TV? You gotta question that. So what they do in the media, though, is they have to sell advertising, which means they need eyeballs watching their channel. So the more they can they can talk about the stuff that gets people excited, thinking that they're hearing really good, solid information. That's what they're really in it for. So you just got to understand that. Nothing wrong with media. Just got to understand that's what's going on here. The next one would be friends and family. So this is the guy at the barbecue. Talk about your barbecue buddy. Talks about his big stock wins, right? And says, I made all this money, and he may be telling you the truth. He or she could be a woman, might not be just a man, and maybe telling you the truth that they had these big wins. I got this stock, and you can too. Now, just so you know, they're not telling you about all the losses that they had. Okay, so it's just so you know, if you didn't know that was what's going on here, they're only telling you about when they make money. But aside from that, you also have to understand, like, do they know, like, is this somebody you want to influence you? Do they know your situation? Probably not. Is their situation the same as yours? Probably not. They may still be working. They don't need their portfolio for income. They're just putting money in it through their 401k, through their IRA. And you may be in a position where you have to pull money from your portfolio every month to supplement Social Security because now you're retired. Or you may have a big purchase coming up. You're going to pay $50,000 for a new vehicle, and you don't need to have that. You're going to do this in about 2 months. You don't need to have that in the market fluctuating, and market could go down. You don't have $50,000 to pull. So you have to also think about, like, the influence of friends and family. Is that something that you really want to listen to? Now, the other one, and this kind of all relates together, is with the emotions of fear and greed. And that really comes back to the media influence, when they're saying that the market's crashing, you got to get out, and they're reporting on that. There's a lot of fear in the air, right? Fear. And then the greed would come where you have somebody saying, like, this stock is a buy, look at all the money I made, that kind of stuff, and you can too. And then the greed could step in. So fear and greed is a big thing. Now, this is just a really handy drawing I've seen before, and it's really easy. It's a good illustration. But when the market's up here at the top, everyone is very excited about it. They've seen the market go up. They've seen all their friends making money, and now they're ready to jump in, and they're ready to make money themselves. But it's already had all the big growth. It's at a high point. Now, when the market goes down, and it's in this point right here, everybody's depressed. Nobody wants to be in the market anymore. Now, the reality is that when the market's high and it's been on a big run, and you're going to just jump in and try to time the market, this is probably when there's the most risk out there, because all the growth has already happened, and it's probably time for a correction. And ironically, when it's down at its low point, that's probably when you have the least risk, when nobody's wanting to be in it. Now, in reality, none of us can tell when a high point is reached or a low point. That's why when it comes to people saying, like, time the market, jump out right now or jump in right now, it's really difficult to do that. and to really to take that seriously, to think that they know how to do that. And again, if they knew how to do that, they would just do that and make the money themselves instead of sharing that with everybody. But what ends up happening a lot of times is that by trying to time the market, investors often get in at these wrong times, can lose money after they've lost so much and they can't take the pain anymore. They may jump out and they miss out on the gain. And that, my friend, is a recipe for crashing your retirement savings, is what that is. And it's because it's these emotions, fear and greed. And we're never going to stop being human, so we're never going to stop having those emotions right there. But if you can be aware of it, that can help you to overcome that. Now, there's some other things that we think about. You have things like loss aversion. They've done studies that say losses are 2 times more powerful than gains. That means if you go to the casino and you win $100 on blackjack, it feels good. And then the next hand, when you lose $100 on blackjack, it feels 2 times worse than it felt good for when you won the money. Now, what that means for you when you're investing is, since losses are 2 times more powerful than gains, there's always that incentive of that on that fear side to say, I gotta jump out. I gotta try to time the market right now. I gotta get out because I'm timing it because I know it's going to go down even farther. There's that temptation. So that's where understanding how we actually work with this whole thing of loss aversion is important. Recency bias, that's when you're looking at kind of like recent past to project the future. Okay. So that's where you might be saying, the market's going down. It's been going down. It's going to keep going down because that's what it recently did. And I think it's going to keep doing that in the future. Or the market's been going up. That's what it did recently. I think it's going to keep doing that. Or the market's right here. And I remember a couple of years ago when it was right there, just about 3 years ago, that was right before a crash. So therefore I'm going to get out because that's what recently happened, right? That's what recency bias does, is we're trying to predict and time the market. That's just kind of how we like, as humans, we like to try to find patterns, and that's one way we do that. And they can really lead you down the wrong path when it comes to investing. Anchoring is another thing to keep in mind. This is kind of like using irrelevant info to make your decision. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's say a stock was selling at 80 a share, and then it dropped down to 40 a share. An anchoring bias would say, hey, you know what? That thing used to sell at 80. Now it's selling at 40. This is a good buy. I need to jump in and buy a lot of this company, right? Because you've anchored the number 80 in your head. Well, it could be that the fundamentals of the company are no longer strong. What if you're hundreds of years ago, and you have a whip and buggy company that sells whips because everybody, nobody's riding automobiles yet, and they're selling at $80 a share, and suddenly automobiles come into the market, people start buying them. Less and less people are buying the product of the whip and the buggy, for the horse buggy company. Well, 40 a share might be still too high for a company like that because they're about to be out of business. But anchoring is where we start looking at things that are kind of like irrelevant information, and then using that to project forward what we ought to do, is what's going on there. So that's another thing that you have to watch out for. Now, let's talk a little bit about some solutions to this. Probably the first and biggest solution is to create an investment plan. And what I mean by that, to be more specific, is to put a plan in place that says, if I'm retiring and I need to have X percentage of growth on average over the next 10, 15, 20 years in order to fund my retirement, then I'm probably going to need to invest a certain way and not be trying to come in and out of the market, timing the market and all that kind of stuff like that. And have a plan in place and then stick to that plan, and then not think about all these other things that can kind of just divert us, but just put the blinders on and say, this is my plan. Now, that's one way to help overcome a lot of these biases and these emotions that we have. The next one is expect markets to fluctuate. And also, I'm just going to add to that to think about what is a normal fluctuation. So I like to use, and you've seen this in some other videos, I'm sure, I like to use this bell curve that I draw. And I say, if your portfolio historically has had an average return right here, and it can deviate from that return, this amount, then when your portfolio goes down by this much, just understand that's normal. And if it goes up by this much, just understand that that's normal. And then that helps you to stick to the plan of saying like, hey, you know what, if this is the type of portfolio I have with this type of historical growth rate and this type of historical kind of deviating from that standard, everything's okay if it does this, and I can stick to my plan because nothing really crazy outside the realm of statistics has happened. Right? That's a really important thing to keep in mind. And then lastly, just be aware that we're all human. So we never are able to fully get over the fact that we are going to have fear and we're going to have greed. We're going to look at things like anchoring, where we put an anchor on a certain price and think that means something, even when the world and everything else is changing. When it comes to emotions, the fear and greed one for a retiree, and that's mostly who watches this channel, fear is probably going to be the bigger one than greed is. Fear is going to probably take over more at that point. So you have to be aware of that, because you're at a point where your salary has gone away and now you're living on Social Security. Maybe you have to pull from that portfolio, and you're not ever going to be able to replenish that portfolio again, because you're probably not going to go back to work and start contributing more savings into a 401k. So that portfolio becomes like, this is what we've got. We can't replace it. So that really ramps up the fear. And so that's why it's important to understand that when it comes to investing in retirement, and making sure that you're investing appropriately, not too risky, not too, where you're having to go up and down so much that it scares you, or not too conservatively where you can't get that long-term growth that you may need to fund your retirement. Okay. Now, if you're want some additional help, feel free to hop over to my site, retirementplanningmadeeasy.com. Download the essential step-by-step retirement guide. It can help you out with some of your income planning in retirement, which is super important, especially as you're looking at that time period to retire and your salary goes away, and you need to know, how am I going to pay for my living expenses, my retirement, and just doing the things I want to do in retirement? Well, you actually have spots where you can fill in and customize this thing, and make it really yours, is what you can do. And if you're considering possible outside help from like a financial advisor, for example, when I send you the email that's got the retirement guide in it, I'll put a link in there to my calendar if you want to hop on a call with me and see if I can help you. We can't help everybody. There's some people who have needs that just don't fit into our niche, and I'll let you know if that's the case. But feel free to do that, and you can run some questions by me and see if we would be a possible fit to work together as well. That is all I got for today. Thank you for stopping by, watching the video, listening to the podcast, and investing this time into your future, into your retirement. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a good one.